The inability to correctly process information for children with all types of sensory modulation disorder creates a range of difficulties in their daily lives. This includes problems that manifest as behavioral, emotional, or attentional problems. Most people think the behaviors exhibited could be within the child's control, if only he or she cared enough. Sadly, these children almost always have difficulty with relationships, playing with other children, being accepted, and learning. Their lives tend to go from crisis to crisis, and their families' lives revolve around them. Everyone is walking on eggshells so they don't start a meltdown. Our primary goals with these children and all children with sensory processing disorder are the following. 1, to increase social participation. 2, to increase self-regulation abilities. And 3, to increase self-esteem and self-confidence. Only as a side effort do we work on sensory and motor skills. Our real goals are related to quality of life, not to skill building. We will return to this principle over and over in the subsequent courses. Now, let's take a quick look at sensory-based motor disorders. SBMD includes 2 subtypes, postural disorder and dyspraxia. It is basically a motor disorder with an underlying sensory dysfunction. Individuals with SBMD are less likely to have meltdowns than children with over-responsivity and sensory craving. Actually, many children with postural issues do have sensory under-responsivity as well. Children with postural disorder have poor core stability. Postural control is the ability to manage the movements of muscles and joints. If you receive accurate sensory input from your tactile, vestibular, visual, and proprioceptive systems, you can climb up and down a tree or up a rocky slope without really thinking about it. You don't have to think about where to put your hands and feet. You do not need to think, place my left hand here, place my right foot there. You just know without thinking. Your knowing occurs because you simultaneously receive accurate sensory feedback from muscles, joints, and tendons during your movements, which coincides with sensory information from other sensory systems. Very crucial here is your proprioceptive system, which provides body awareness and a map of where your body is in space. Walking or running on uneven surfaces, jumping off curbs, skipping, roller skating, skiing, and lots of other active movements are fun and easy when you have postural control and intact proprioception. Those with postural disorder have a lack of core strength and poor endurance for motor activities. A particular symptom is difficulty stabilizing their body, both when holding still and during movement. When you stabilize yourself, your core body muscles, which are located in your trunk, contract. If you have good core stability, then if someone pushes against you, you can remain stable and not fall or move. Children with postural disorder have difficulty executing movements due to weak muscles and poor awareness of body sensations, particularly in the tactile and proprioceptive domains. You can recognize a person with postural disorder by watching people on a moving walkway. People who seem fearful or uncomfortable walking on this moving surface probably have some type of sensory-based motor disorder. They may hold onto the moving handhold for dear life. Probably they are uncomfortable moving their body simultaneously with being physically moved by an outside force. Often they are afraid because they have difficulty stabilizing their body.
Brad is a 4th grade boy. He hates art class. He hates it even more because everyone else loves it, even the boys. Brad doesn't mind the messy stuff, but Brad has a postural disorder and is unable to sit on the high stool at the art counter. He knows that today when he arrives, he will be there for 45 minutes of art, with all the children laughing and talking, making Mother's Day gifts. The thought of reaching across the table to share colors, shifting his weight from side to side, to reach for materials, and most of all, Knowing he will have to get up and down off the stool multiple times is making him dread the art class. Brad tries hard to get done fast, but after the first 20 minutes, he knows he will not be able to finish this project unless he does something radical. He quietly slips down onto the floor with all his supplies and lies down to complete his project, praying that Miss Nelson doesn't see him and send him to the principal's office. Brad already knows he is different. In fact, all the kids keep telling him that, and now he can't even finish his Mother's Day project in time. I'm just stupid, he thinks, and now I'll never get my Mother's Day project done. Ironically, Brad is one of the most intelligent children in class.
This child is asked to swing out and kick a target when the therapist says the magic word snowball, and then land back at the top of the blue cushion placed on the ramp. He does not have good core stability, and thus he has difficulty using enough resistance to stop his body when he swings back towards the cushion. The momentum of his swing is actually strong enough to propel him right out of the swing. But finally, in the end, the flush of success.
Okay, are you ready to blast off? All right. 3.
What do you want me to stand?
2.
No. Well, let's see if I can spin this way.
You'll land at the top.
All right, let's see.
Almost.
That was close.
All right. Oh. 3,
You know what? It works.
2, 1.
You're going down. 5,
Yeah, if it's too
4,
much.
3, 2,
Okay.
1.
A
Snowball.
little bit.
Oh,
All right.
As with all sensory processing disorders, the symptoms are turned into emotions, and the individual affected begins to suffer from low self-esteem, poor social participation, and difficulty with self-regulation. This child needs to know that this is not his fault, and secondly, he needs treatment, which in all likelihood will reduce his postural disorder significantly. Children with postural disorder are very weak. They have poor endurance. People think they're lazy and unmotivated, but actually they just don't have the muscle strength to carry out the motor activities that other children can do. Very often on a playground, you'll see them by themselves, leaning against a wall. They are often very lonely children, and it doesn't take that much to understand them. I think if we just understand them for who they really are and treat the problem, we can really help these children be mainstreamed into regular society. The second subtype of sensory-based motor disorder is dyspraxia. Dyspraxia is a motor planning problem that occurs when the child has difficulty creating ideas and actually completing or doing the motor actions. Motor planning requires coming up with a plan, sequencing the steps to achieve the goal, and then actually doing the actions. Once a child learns how to do an activity automatically without conscious thought, it no longer requires a motor plan. For example, when you are little and first learning to put on your clothes, it requires great concentration and thus praxis or motor planning. But then getting dressed is automatic at an older age, until you are so old that you spend hours worrying about what to wear. Then, because planning is not required to get dressed as an adult, dressing no longer taps motor planning abilities. However, most of us don't remember learning how to get dressed. But if you think about the last new motor task you learned to do, maybe you can remember what it feels like to be dyspraxic. For me, it was learning how to roll a kayak in white water. I was taking a kayaking class with my daughter, who was then 11 years old. Of course, at age 11, she simply turned upside down and rolled right back up as instructed. But me? No way. I rolled upside down, thought about all the things I had been taught, flicking my hip, putting my arm out straight along the surface of the water, pulling down and letting my trunk follow. Well, I turned upside down all right, and my trunk followed right to the bottom of the pond. As I came out of my kayak, not just once, but over and over, my helpful 11-year-old said, "Mom, you're thinking too much about it. Just do it like this." Whoop, she was under, and whoop, she was right up again. It was a very humbling experience. Children who have difficulty with motor planning often look clumsy and awkward and may either become self-conscious about their motor problems or, if self-assured, play the role of class clown. Some of the primary symptoms of dyspraxia are clumsy, awkward movements, difficulty learning new, large motor tasks, difficulty with fine motor tasks, buttoning, shoe tying, zippering, using utensils, and keyboarding, uncomfortable on playground equipment or playing active games or team sports, and self-conscious about motor problems. Now let's view an example of dyspraxia in motion. Notice what a hard time this child has timing his movements to clap the therapist's hands at an appropriate time. He even has trouble giving himself power by pushing against the floor in a smooth, rhythmic pattern. Finally, watch as he falls right out of the swing. These are all symptoms of motor planning problems.
My hands are ready. Big push. Oh, owie.
It's okay.
That was my fault. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Oh, strong hands.
Hello.
Bye.
Ah.
Get my hands. Whoa. Get her other hand. Good job. Good job.
I need a table.
Okay, let's try that. Let's go get Jen's other hand. Oh, no. Good. Whoa. Oh. Big button. Oh, ouch. Poor Jen. Up. Eyes up, Zachary, so you can see my hand. There you go.
Again, we see the theme reiterated. The sensory processing disorder creates an emotional challenge, and this in turn may become translated into negative behaviors. Children with dyspraxia have motor planning problems. They are awkward and clumsy. They may have very poor penmanship, but often they're very smart children. And with a little bit of treatment, very often we can really help their motor planning problems so that they can join team sports. So they're not always the last one to be chosen to be on a team, and so that they feel the same as other children. That's what's really important. Being like other children, being